All right, Gearheads, welcome to your Sunday night with Speed City. We're going to talk Miami Grand Prix. We were there. We're going to tell you how it all broke down. We're going to talk about Lando's win.
How many people you think are still at the bar and in the pool? You're like, there's somebody sweeping them up in a mermaid outfit.
Yeah, the party was definitely on at Miami. We're going to talk about the Andretti fight to get in F1 continues. If you've been living under a rock, that's been burbling to the surface once again. We're going to talk about the Indy GP.
It's the weirdest story. It's becoming surreal now.
Yeah, the Andretti story, you mean? Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And we're going to talk about the Penske suspensions and a few more little tidbits here and there. This is John Massengale sitting with Jonathan Green here in Austin, Texas, in the studio. I am still tired from Miami. It took me this long to recover completely.
Well, that was because you were nightclubbing every night.
Yeah.
I told you to go to bed like me and Bob. We were tucked up with slippers and pipe at 8:30.
Yeah, that's me, Mr.
Well, not me and Bob,
Miami
but...
nightclub. No, it was a blast. It was, way beyond expectation for, and we'll get to the television ratings here in a few minutes.
Yeah.
But
most importantly.
The race itself was amazing. It was very well run. It was incredible racing on track all weekend because we had the Porsche Cup North America, the Porsche Carrera Cup North America. We had the Women's Series. We had the F1 Academy. And it was all great racing all weekend long.
What did we say when COTA started? We were like, oh, yeah, there's all these things you got to get right. And the food wasn't right. And it was too hot. And people weren't getting communication. Car parks weren't right. But the racetrack was great. And Miami has got that. The racing. Maybe my brother-in-law called me up and said, wow, I've never seen so many overtakes. Now, okay, DRS, fine. But there was some good side-by-side racing throughout that Grand Prix.
And you know what? Speaking of the way things were, we thought they were going to be. Remember last year when Vegas was coming on and Max was poo-pooing it before he put on an Elvis suit.
An Elvis suit, yeah.
And went to the press conferences. But
the height of hypocrisy.
Max was poo-pooing Vegas as it's going to be a big show. Yeah, it's going to be entertaining, blah, blah, blah.
It's not the sport. It's not the sport I signed up for. And
they were saying the same thing about Miami. And what are the two best races since Miami to Vegas now? Maybe Vegas and Miami now, because Lando won and a fantastic race in Vegas. More organic overtakes in Vegas than we've seen.
He came from ninth, did Verstappen, and that just shows you, that tells you it's a good racetrack because DRS or no DRS, you can't do that unless you can overtake.
Well, unless you got the Red Bull car and Max Verstappen, maybe. But
there is that.
Still,
it has wings.
Still, those two races, everybody in Europe was saying, "Oh, it's just America. They're just." It's just a big show. They were great, both of them.
Do you think now he's retiring, he's going to tell us where he gave the wings to Red Bull? Because that's the truth, and it is flying.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that some more too, because that's
honestly, that's his biggest. That dominated the weekend, didn't it?
Yeah, it was as big as any story. So, yeah, we'll talk about what we think, or nobody knows. You can't tell. Oh, Newey could do whatever he wants, including retire.
Yeah, he's certainly got the money.
Yeah. But let's talk about, I wrote in there, was Lando's win a safety car fluke?
Ooh, no.
I completely agree.
No.
But, I heard some of that.
It helps. It helps.
Absolutely,
but
it helps.
No, I don't think so. That was it was a all-out win.
Okay, all-out win. So we saw Max Verstappen, of all the people, we saw the Bollard get more abuse during the Porsche Cup. I don't know if the F1 Academy hit the Bollard, but during the Porsche Cup, the Bollard was target number one, right?
Yep.
Because it was over that blind corner.
Yeah.
What was it, 16?
16.
And so and then the last person I would have expected to hit the Bollard was Max.
Max.
And he hit it.
And evidently it made more trouble than we perhaps gave it at the time. We just thought, I kept saying, oh, well, it's lightweight, it won't do any harm. But evidently afterwards they looked at the data and it did.
Well, so I watched Jolyon Palmer's YouTube video from F1 analyzing that. And he analyzed it. First, he showed the slow-mo video of Max's car going over the Bollard, and then the back left corner of the floor, one of those key aerodynamic spots right in front of the back wheel, hit the mount where the Bollard mounts. And you think, okay, that could affect something. But then they showed the graphics of the lap times, and they showed Max before the Bollard and after the Bollard, and they were the same.
Okay.
They were the same. In other words, technically, from they're just showing the raw evidence, it didn't affect Max's car.
Interesting.
And remember, when Lando got out in front and took off, he immediately took off and started gapping Max.
No, but I think we got hint of where Red Bull were on the Saturday. After the qualifying interview that Max did, if you remember, it was one of those strange things. And what I love about Hamilton, Alonso, and Max, but Max hasn't had to do this. For the first time, he had to explain what was wrong, right? Everything is usually lovely, right? And we know why, because he wins. But this time, he said to a journalist after qualifying, it's strange this weekend. Just as in the first sector, the tires turn on, and the second sector, they turn off, and I'm sliding everywhere. And then in the third sector, they come back. And he goes, and that can happen the next lap. It's not gradual or whatever. So he was struggling all weekend, and I think that was the story of Red Bull. It was a Singapore story, similar.
And you heard Max right after qualifying. He thought that he had bummed it. He was like, wait, I got pole?
Yeah.
He said, how bad was, his quote was something to the effect of,
how bad was everybody else?
How bad was everybody else's lap? Because he was so surprised. And by the way, let me tell you what we were doing in Miami. You hadn't really set the stage. In case you didn't know, we didn't get to do YouTube last week, and we had way too many connections. We got to do our show. If you're a regular, you know Chris Medlin's connection to the Pirelli Wi-Fi. Well, we just said, all right, screw it. We're going straight to the source. We did the show inside the Pirelli Wi-Fi.
Well, it was the center of the planet. I mean, Gunther was there. Mario was there. Mario Isola.
Gunther was he was the ambassador to the Miami Grand Prix. And so his office for the weekend was the Pirelli hospitality.
That's smart. Talk about Switzerland. That's as neutral as you can be.
Exactly. And so when I was setting up, Gunther, I said, hey, man, you're at my table. Could you get up, sir? And it was good. Anyway, so he was there the whole weekend. It was great. But yes, we did it inside the hospitality, which is inside the Hard Rock Stadium, looking out over the AstroTurf, which is, I'm assuming, a second layer on top of the field or whatever. But anyway, all the teams are set up. You've probably seen photos of it. It was really amazing to do the show there. At one point, we always have Chris out on the grid or inside the paddock. He was doing the show just through the glass. It was kind of cool. So anyway, that's where we were. But just going back to Max, his car may have been affected a little bit. But like you said, they couldn't quite get their grip on the tires all weekend. And Mario Isola, who was the head of motorsport for Pirelli, was talking about this. His quote in the pre-show was unpredictability because he had already seen it all throughout the weekend. And Max and them, they just couldn't get it right. But let's not forget about McLaren's upgrades. How many do they have? Half
400?
a car's worth?
Well, the official line was that Lando had all of the upgrades, and of which there were many, and Oscar Piastri had half of those. So that bodes well for Imola because, I mean, I know it's a different track completely. Couldn't be more different. But if those upgrades work as well as they did, and they can move on from that, McLaren step right up.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I just can't wait for the rest of the season now.
Well, I mean, don't get too excited.
I won't, but remember going into this, they said, we've got all these upgrades, but don't get too excited because this track does not suit us. So think about that.
I think I said in commentary, when I saw what they were doing, I was like, well, maybe they're just throwing the kitchen sink, thinking it's going to be a lottery because it's a sprint race weekend, so you've got no time to learn. I mean, it really is the worst possible time to bring upgrades because you get one free practice. That seems stupid in some ways because you've got 1 hour. In fact, less than that. You had 45 minutes because Leclerc spun it round and stalled. So you got 45 minutes to work out how every one of those aspects that you've changed on the car is going to work going forward. And my word, did they make them work?
Yeah. And Casey, I know we've got some photos of Lando, but how I was emotional after Lando's.
Oh, yeah.
I was after Lando's win. I mean, what does he have? 110 starts, 15 podiums before he ever got his first win.
And a whole bunch of second places. But it was the popularity amongst every man and woman there. He's so popular.
Yeah.
And every driver, I think, that was around came and said, well done.
Yeah. I mean, Hamilton slowed down in his car. Yeah. And, I mean, everybody, even Max was talking about him in post-race interviews. I mean, everybody was ecstatic.
Tell you what, if Oscar gets a win now, I know he's had a sprint car win, but if he gets a Grand Prix win now, those two are going to take on the world.
Yeah. There's been times when Oscar's been just as fast and probably outqualified. I know he's outqualified him and outperformed him in races and stuff. So we know Oscar's fast, and just think another year under his belt.
Oh, yeah. He is. I mean, if Lando was the real deal, Oscar's the real deal. I've said this all along. Zach's combination is one of the most potent outside of Sainz and Leclerc.
Yeah, for sure. I've said it.
Or Hamilton and Russell, but
Yeah.
you know.
Well, and we'll see next year. So about how things
No
play.
movements, noticeably no big ball drops or mic drops since Miami, except that it seems like it's an obvious story now that Antonelli will get his chance in Formula One, probably with Williams.
Yeah, and Behrman, of course,
and Ollie Behrman, yeah.
If Sargent,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and as we know,
who would you keep?
You mean if
Behrman gets the drive that Hülkenberg's giving up, who would you keep at Haas, or would you drop both? I mean, sorry, who would you keep at Sauber?
Yeah, gosh.
And I guess the same question for Haas. Who would you would you get rid of Magnussen?
Magnussen's had so much trouble.
I wouldn't.
I know it's weird.
Behrman showed what he can do in that Ferrari.
Yeah,
but one swan doesn't make a summer, or whatever they say. He needs the guidance of a really good, experienced guy when the times are hard and they've qualified 19th and 20th. So I would keep Magnussen. Bottas and Sauber is different, and Guan Yu Zhou and Bottas staying at Sauber is different with Hülkenberg coming in, because then you really can use him as the old master who is going to develop your new car for Audi. And then I think you could get Sainz, or you could take a gamble. But I think they're going to go with two very strong pair of hands. Magnussen would be good for that drive in a weird way.
I know, but he's on such a bad run right now that he's going
to have to... But we know he hasn't lost his...
you say that. I agree with that. I mean, I've been a big Magnussen fan, but I don't know. It's going to be very...
He's having a tough time, you agree.
Before we leave Miami, we got to talk about the TV numbers.
Please do, yeah.
Well, so 3.1 million viewers, live viewers. The peak was 3.6, but the average they call it.
What do the playoffs in the NBA get?
They'll get a lot more than that. I mean, what we can compare to is NASCAR, because NFL, NBA.
Well, what about it? And Indy.
And what we also can compare, and Indy. What we also can compare to is golf, the Masters, a couple weeks ago, whatever that was. I don't follow golf at all, but they were similar numbers.
Yeah.
But
I think Indy's the obvious. Indy and NASCAR. NASCAR because it's the biggest motorsport and the most. It's every weekend. I would say Indy's weird because it's going through this period of, I don't know what's going on with Indy. It's a weird time.
It is.
I can't quite fathom it, but they are getting better numbers.
Top team got caught cheating.
Yeah, it doesn't help.
The team that owns the sport.
Yeah. And also, I thought it was interesting. Theo Pourchaire is now hanging around. And you could argue that Theo Pourchaire is the best thing outside of a Formula One drive that the European world can offer, in terms of he's just like Ericsson was and Rossi was at the time, but he was on his way to Formula One, like Djokovic is, etc., etc. So to bring him into Indy and see where he stacks up, I know he's going to take time, but if he were to do out the rest of the season and then do a full season in Indy, we'll see how good he really is.
Yeah. The numbers, 3.1 on the same day as NASCAR, 3.1 for Formula One, 2.6, or was it 2.4? 2.4 or 2.6 for NASCAR.
And that was Talladega.
And that it was supposed to be, I don't even know, honestly.
That doesn't matter.
Get a chance. But it was supposed to be head to head, literally same time. But this helped Formula One, I'm sure. They got delayed, right? NASCAR got delayed, so it didn't start till after Formula One ended. So
that's good.
If you're good for F1, but if you're sitting there deciding you're going to watch NASCAR and then all of a sudden Formula One comes on, you're going to watch it. Why not? I mean, I say not everybody, but some fans. But the other thing that I think helped a lot was the way Lando Norris won. Because he got ahead with 25 laps to go, and so it was, I saw an interview with him, and he was like, "Oh, I knew I won it when I got that past Max and got on that turn." I was like, none of us did. We were all waiting for the other shoe to drop, even as we watched the gap grow. But he had a full 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's why the numbers built and built and built. I think.
You know what's funny? This season in NASCAR, I do the highlights, so I see every race, and we've had sort of nose-to-nose finishes and really close finishes for the last few races. And then evidently Kyle Larson won one race by 5 seconds, and the whole of NASCAR was up in arms saying, how terrible.
Max Verstappen all over again.
I know, but that's just one race for NASCAR, and they want to see that every weekend, and it's a tough sell not to get these photo finishes every weekend.
Well, it was It was really the whole weekend was amazing, and we had a blast there.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah. All right, let's take a quick break, and you're listening to your Sunday Night with Speed City. Back after these messages. All right, we're live on YouTube right now. Howdy, folks, says Kevin Kelly. Send me to Miami. Andy P is good evening, guys. Big Tuck TV is here. Andy P, that little show in Austin's all pretty good. Yeah, we're talking about all the Vegas and Miami. Kevin Kelly, the F1 TV post show was right in front of hospitality. Yep. I like Andy P. He says, Pirelli Hospitality has to be an upgrade over the pod you guys had last year. Yeah, they have double booths and single booths. And last year we were in the single booth, and I'm squeezing my shoulders together because we pretty much had to.
I'd love if anybody was there, if anybody's out there in the listening sphere, and was at Miami, I'd love to get your feedback on any criticism, stroke, things that were right, wrong, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're in the middle of it, it's really hard to judge.
Yeah. Brian Dow says Indy marketing sucks. The ratings this season show it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
but it's weird, I mean, we know the press office there, right? And they've got 6 really well-groomed, talented folk there who've done good journalism throughout the years. Worked for teams, worked for Indy. It seems I don't understand what's going on. And the talent there and the personalities there
and the racing.
Hello to everyone. This is Gunther Steiner. This is Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
All right, during the break, we were talking about IndyCar and some comments for some of the folks watching on YouTube. Brian Dow says the Indy marketing sucks, the rating season show it. And we were just talking about, we don't really know why, but one thing that did come to mind, and it's obvious when we talked about earlier in the year, is that IndyCar started the season and then they went dark.
For 8 weeks,
and then they had the weird thermal event.
That doesn't work. If you want to do it at the end of the season.
Right. They had it right in the middle.
It was the second round.
Right. And then they had, I mean, honestly, I had to, when IndyCar was starting again, I was like, okay, where are we in the season? I couldn't even remember where we were.
You know what Indy is suffering from, and it was just what I mentioned about when you're at an event, you can't judge it, right? The problem is that whole series, including Doug Bowles and Roger Penske, are all in Indianapolis. So the whole season is geared around the month of May, and it used to be fine because, it used to be fine because there wasn't as much competition for it. Now with Formula One, now with the sort of TV kind of spreading its world sideways, upwards, downwards, northeast, southwest, if you do that and and also they made the mistake. So they did a race in February at St. Pete, great. Then they go dark for 8 weeks. And then basically,
is that how long it was?
I felt like it.
It was something like that.
7 weeks, to Barber, yeah. They had the thermal in between, but that wasn't a race. And we all said, "Is this why we watching?"
And it was kind of weird, the whole thing.
Yeah. And then you have the scandal. So they're going into the month of May, which is now and this weekend, with a lot of questions to answer. By the way, are we going to tell that story if people have been on a rock? What Roger did?
Absolutely. Let's talk about it now. We'll talk about the Indy GP here in a minute, but let's talk about the scandal
I just
feel, the latest.
If you remember, we had Connor Daly. If you missed it, as soon as this scandal broke, we were all scratching our heads because it just didn't make sense. And then, of course, Newgarden got out in front of it, which I thought was brave, but unnecessary, given that he was just one of 3 drivers. And while he did make the most use of it, he tried to explain himself away and kind of just wrapped himself up in nonsense, really. And I said after that interview, well, why should he be doing that when it should be Tim Cindric? He's the CEO.
Yeah, you said
in
that.
Any
you
other
said it on the air.
any other corporation, it doesn't matter what happens. You cook the books. The CEO is responsible. Simple as that.
Yep.
And finally, it wasn't Tim Cindric who took responsibility. It was the owner of both the team and the series, Roger Penske, who basically put everybody on the sidelines. That's Cindric, his engineer, all the people involved in the number 2 car, and except for Newgarden, and the results today kind of speak for themselves.
Yeah, and we had Connor on, and Connor was really defending the sport. He didn't like the word cheating.
Oh, he's right in the middle of it.
I know, of course he was, and Connor, he's one of my favorites. I mean, he's just fantastic.
Plus, Newgarden's a mate of his. He's not going to trash. I mean,
it's true, and he
did well, I thought.
And look, you were saying it was great that Joseph Newgarden came out and took responsibility, but I I was a little soft on it when we had Connor on, but I don't think he did take responsibility because I honestly.
We thought there'd been a rule change that we in our own minds.
We convinced ourselves.
That's a very strange thing.
I
convinced myself it was okay to push John Massengale into the water. I didn't know it was 133 feet.
Yeah, I have a hard time with that. Honestly, I'll just say it. I just have a hard time believing that they didn't know what they were doing.
Not at this level.
And not at this level. And a guy like Newgarden, who's a professional. I mean, I know he's a Boy Scout too, and he just looked totally conflicted to me.
Colton Hurtis, I think, summed it up. No, Pato O'Ward summed it up by saying, I've only been in IndyCar 5 years, and I know the rules.
Yeah. Oh, and you heard Colton Hurtis also. He said BS.
Mm-hmm.
I call BS. You know, how do you forget? How do you forget the rules? So, it was.
To be honest,
yeah,
the Penske organization and IndyCar could be in a lot worse situation had they not acted as quickly as they did.
They did. I got to give them full credit.
Formula One could learn from that.
Yes, not waiting months and months or whatever, weeks sometimes.
Have they decided whether one more point is going to help or not, or is that going to be next year? That's next Concord agreement, right? Well, they run out of cigarettes. Somebody's got to go and get some.
For the meeting, everybody's smoking. You can see the table.
We cannot start the meeting. I don't have my Marlboros.
Yeah. So, but it did take. I'm not jumping on Penske about this, but he did wait a little bit and say, all right, I'm disappointed. I'm going to suspend Cindric. How many people got suspended?
4.
I mean, yeah. So, and as a result, that's a nice transition into the Indy GP because the first thing I'll talk about is Newgarden finishing 18th. Wow. I mean, shows me 2 things. Number one, strategists matter. Also, probably bigger.
Engineers.
Engineers matter. But also the mental side. Yeah, exactly. The mental side of the sport. I mean, his head has got to be completely conflicted. If he didn't tell the truth, that's all he can think about. Even if he just somehow did forget, all of this going on in his head, you can't play golf. You can't go race driving at 230 miles an hour with all this running through your head. You just can't do it.
No, and they're humans after all. At the end of the day, they have feelings.
But Indy GP, not the most exciting. I was out in the garage working on my BMW while I was watching it, so I wasn't glued to it.
How many German cars have you got?
Just 2, and they both need a lot of work. They both have a lot of miles.
Hey, props to my Kiwis. They do fly. Dixon, Armstrong, and McLaughlin, 4th, 5th, and 6th. Great result for Armstrong, probably his best result ever in Indy.
That's what I wrote down. I said, Jonathan, you know him well.
Yep, he'll be well pleased. Things are moving forward for Armstrong. Did I tell you the story that Angela Cullen is now looking after him?
They talked about it during the broadcast. They showed, that's the second time they've talked about it.
That's an interesting move.
Yeah, and Alex Palou, second time in a row that he's won the Indy GP, and he does have the shot at shout out to David Land. I was watching his YouTube channel.
Yeah.
He says he can win the pole in the race in the GP, which he did, and he could win the pole in the race in the 500. So that's kind of a cool little stat. But Alex Palou, I think it was his 10th win in IndyCar.
So hang on a minute. He's McLaren, right?
Yes.
That McLaren back-to-back wins in Indy.
Yeah, there you go.
F1.
There you go. And one of my favorites, Casey, do you have the video of Santino Ferrucci and Grosjean going at it during the warm-up?
Talk about 2 volatile guys.
Oh, they're perfect. It's perfect because I'll just talk about it while Casey gets it ready. But they were going at it all weekend.
But also, Grosjean, this is the 2nd week in a row. He did it at Barber, too. He shouldered somebody off the road for getting in their way. Malukas, I think it was. And not Malukas. So it doesn't matter. But he goes, I gave him the French move.
Yeah.
In other words, elbowed him out.
Well, but Ferrucci. Oh, it's not going to take that. And so, no, not that one, Casey. The video of Ferrucci saluting. I called it. So saluting
That's it. He's got it.
Okay. Well, I thought I had it in there, but anyway. So Santunio?
That's good enough.
Santunio, I like that.
The great Al Santini.
Santino shot the finger out the top of the IndyCar as he went by Grosjean after them banging and stuff. So, but it is the perfect pair because, let's face it, Grosjean can be amazingly fast, but he can also be a little bit out of control.
He has that Latin flair.
Yeah. and Ferrucci didn't like it. So anyway, I thought that was a good part of the weekend. But what else from IndyCar?
Hey, Jamie Chadwick.
Yes.
How about that?
Amazing.
Don't want
First podium.
Having done the F1 Academy, and we're all celebrating fantastic stuff by Abby Pulling and our own Chloe Chambers.
Chloe Chambers,
but
first
Chadwick,
American on the podium for Haas. Yeah.
Right. But Chadwick, Jamie Chadwick, to get a podium
Yes.
in Indy Lights, her second season, go for it. Really happy for her.
That was fantastic. First time I ever interviewed her, she was just announced for the W Series a few years ago. And after that
What does the
interview...
W stand for? Just wondering. Don't start me.
Inside joke. Not a joke. Never mind. So we interviewed her, and I said she was one of the best, if not the best, young persons I've ever interviewed, because she was super young at the time.
Effervescent, full of it.
Intelligent.
Confident, intelligent.
Yes,
I agree.
all the above, and has since showed all that. But yes, love the fact that she ended up on a podium in the Indy Lights
That'll
series.
do her a whole bunch of confidence now.
Yeah. I mean, well, look, and she's moving up the series pretty rapidly. You know, the biggest challenge, she said, at the beginning of the IndyCar season was the steering, how much strength it took, and it just took some time to get used to it, right? And so now, obviously, she's getting used to it.
She was on the bubble at the end of last season. Everybody was like, really? Does she?
Yeah.
Because, you know, they've got a lot of drivers in that team, and it was kind of like, is she cutting it? And I think she's real. I mean, she qualified 5th at Barber. That didn't work out. She had an incident at the end of the race. But now, no, can't take that away.
Hey,
Podium.
Speaking of young women, Abby Pulling. Did you see what she got?
Tell me.
In the British Championship, somebody on YouTube commented about it. But she got a win in the British F4 Championship.
A week after?
Yeah, the week after.
Go girl. Yes.
So
happy for her.
She is having a nice run at it. I mean,
But
she
didn't
just dominated.
she look like the real package? I mean, Dorian Pin.
Yeah.
Came in and everybody said, this French woman, she's in all these series. She dominated Jeddah, which she did. No one's going to hold a candle to her. And I'm afraid Abby just took it to her at Miami.
I'm really glad to see someone commenting on YouTube about the women racing, because we've gotten in trouble before for too much talk about women in racing, and we've gotten in trouble for
talking about it. You can't win.
You can't win, but I'm just glad people are interested in it. And
I think this, like I said on the grid, I think that was this Miami weekend was a turning point for women in motorsport.
Well, they've got Formula One behind them now with the F1 Academy. The power of Formula One behind the series,
and more importantly, blue chip sponsors.
Absolutely.
The world makes the money go. Money makes the world go round.
All right, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, all about Andretti. There's lots of stuff happening in that. We have an exclusive interview that Chris Medlin did for us in Miami. Back after this. All right, we're still live on YouTube. Where were we? Let's see. Sugar. Man, you do have a lot of sugar over there.
No, that was somebody gave me these from some Halloween or something, and it's just been sat there.
Let's finish up on the Indy stuff. Brian says, and for all the talk of month of May from Indy, the month of May started with F1 in Miami, so drop the ball there. Oh, yeah, and scheduling, yeah.
Yeah.
Dip says, did F1 respond to Congress letter?
Yeah. Is there anything else on that?
There is. No, they have not responded, Dip. They have till May 21st, I believe, at 5 p.m., and we'll look at the article just to make sure I got that date right.
Yeah, I read that.
A couple of people, Big Tuck talking about Chloe Chambers look awesome. Fun to watch, to see her passing. Man, she looked great. And if y'all want to learn more about her, we've got some good. Jonathan did a 30-minute sit down with her about February when she first got accepted.
Well, she got accepted to Haas, yeah.
Yep. Into the
and we're going to try and get her back
Academy.
on the show before Imola.
Big Tuck TV says F1 Academy Miami was my first watch. It was good fun. Good. Yeah.
Hi, this is Mario Andretti, and this is Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
Casey found the video of Santino shooting the finger at Grosjean. That has definitely got a Ricky Bobby feel to it, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Man, our YouTube chat is blowing up with all the women discussion in racing. I love it.
Good.
Big Tuck TV, Joe of Oyster Bay, Allie W, Joe of Oyster Bay, Dip, all talking about, like they have their own Netflix series coming too.
That's right.
So love it. All right, we said we're going to talk Andretti, and we're gonna. because there's been 2 rounds of congressional interaction into the Andretti.
How did this start?
This started back, I believe it was May 1st. So, gosh, it's been 10 days now. When there's a handful of a bipartisan group. What did you say? Leave it to Andretti to bring the world together here in the United States? A bipartisan group of congressmen.
This isn't something that Andretti
looked
for.
No, as a matter of fact, this interview that Chris did with Michael, at Miami can set the table for this because he talks all about it. Casey, if you've got that, let's play it. Here we go. Go ahead, Casey.
Michael, thanks so much for joining us here in the middle of the Hard Rock Stadium at the Miami Grand Prix. Lovely, hot, sunny day. What is the Andretti Global team doing here this week? What have your meetings been? What have you been hoping to achieve this week?
Well, there's a lot of different meetings going on for different reasons, but we're just here to show that we're still working forward to our goal is to be in Formula One in 26, so our work continues at pace.
Yeah, well, that line, we've loved seeing it everywhere because I've seen the work you've been doing at Silverstone. How is that sort of facility looking at the moment?
Very, very good. Yeah, there's a lot of building going on there. There's a lot of building going on at General Motors, and also a lot of building, in our Fisher's headquarters. So yeah, there's a lot of work happening.
How difficult has it been to kind of commit to all that work when you're still having these meetings and trying to knock the door down?
Yeah, it is. It's a risk for sure, but I think it shows how much we believe in this. That we believe it's great for Formula One, and we think it's great for American fans, and to bring a company like General Motors into Formula One, I think is huge, and so yeah, we believe in it that much that we're willing to roll the dice.
And I hear you had a meeting, I think, in the UK with FOM as well. Maybe some talks starting on that front. Is there still lines of communication going on at least?
Yeah, we're working. We're trying. We're trying to get more communication and see what we need to do to get in.
So what happens next? I guess, like, what work can you continue doing until you get an answer, or are we getting to that point now where you kind of have to stop and wait?
No, we're not there yet, but it's getting time. We're going to need some answers here soon, but we have some things we're working on, and hopefully we'll get some answers soon.
And you've got the support of Congress behind you as well. They were pushing hard in the week. What was kind of your reaction to that, I guess?
100% surprised. I didn't I stay out of that. I'm just here to build a team, and that's what I'm doing. But for sure, it's great to have people like them looking what's going on and getting behind us.
And GM still fully committed, excited about the project?
Very, very committed, very excited. People will not understand until we show them, the effort that's being put in on both sides. This is going to be rival with the Ferraris and the Mercedes, the effort that's being put in with such a great company like GM.
Do you feel closer than when you were, I say, here 12 months ago or the first time you came here? Do you feel like you're getting closer to getting on the grid?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. Enjoy your day.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, lots to talk about here, right?
The first thing I want to pick up on is what Michael said right at the start of that interview about how we are working to get on the grid by 26, when the truth is they've been invited to 28. And while they were...
Sort of.
Yeah.
Yes, they have been, but it's not like you're in at 28. They said they would invite them to, mainly because they were going to become a power units supplier immediately by 28.
I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah. And remember, this interview was Sunday, of the day of the Grand Prix, a week ago today. And then the second letter to Congress, or from Congress,
Monday,
came out Monday. But let's continue to talk about what he said there. He said, first of all, lots of building at Fisher's, the headquarters, right? They're building the headquarters.
That's in Indianapolis.
Indianapolis, right? And then Silverstone, the new facility, they're just ramping that up and hiring. If you go on Indeed.com, you're looking for a job in racing, they're hiring 60 people. And then he said lots of building at Cadillac, which leads me to something he just said at the end there. When Chris asked him, how's everything going at GM? Are they still enthusiastic? And he quickly, before he even finished the sentence, he said, yes, immediately. He said, yes, they're still enthusiastic. They're ready to go. And I believe that because I feel like they wouldn't be doing all of this if they didn't have the support of GM and maybe the money, right? So there's lots of stuff to talk about here. He said, they're going to need answers soon, and I don't know what that means.
Well,
Does that mean are they going to?
It's like any conveyor belt. You can't commit to production,
Yep.
And you can go down into a lot of loss if they suddenly start if they start doing CAD and wind tunnel. They've already got a quarter size wind tunnel testing.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah,
and
the model.
You go to a wind tunnel anywhere. That's costing you big money.
Yep. And I love what he said there at the end. We're going to rival Ferrari and Mercedes in the product that we produce because of GM. So really interesting. And then, so that was Sunday. Then Monday. Then Monday came out, and the letter that was from the House Judiciary Committee. And this is the committee that's responsible for looking at anti-competition, monopolies, and all that unfair restraints on trade is the way they talk about it, right? And so this was written to, this is from the head of the House Committee, the Jerry Nadler, the ranking committee member of the House Judiciary Committee. So this is something, if you're an American company and you get this letter, the next thing you're going to find yourself is testifying in front of Congress like, what's his name from Facebook?
Yeah, Zuckerberg. Yeah.
Zuckerberg. So this is a very serious letter, and they have till May 21st to respond. And I want to read about the things they're asking for, but what were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to say, and in fact, it fits nicely. It's a segue to this. What's interesting to me is this story started off as a sort of European arrogance and sort of non-interest in all things American, and especially Andretti. It was almost like, you're not going to be competitive. We don't need you. We don't need an 11th team.
Right.
We want to split the money. And now it's turning into far more meaty a story about antitrust and monopolies commissions, because if it's okay for Audi and it's okay for Renault and it's okay for Mercedes and Ferrari to be in Formula One, why is it not okay for one of the biggest manufacturers, if not bigger than any of those I just mentioned, to be in?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. And then I love the word that they used. It's not a word that I use a lot. In fact, I looked it up to make sure, but it says the excuses put forward for denying Andretti Cadillac's entry appear to be pretextual, arbitrary, and unrelated to Cadillac's suitability to compete in Formula One. Pretextual. I mean, that basically they're saying you made this stuff up. And the next sentence in the letter, well, they kind of did, because they said, we're not going to bring you because you're not going to compete for podiums and race wins. Okay, so what about the other 7 teams that are not competing right now for podiums and race wins? I mean, you can't say that in Formula One in the way that it cycles through with teams at the top right now. I mean, if you're not competing for podiums and race wins, you can immediately count out 5 of the teams.
Yeah.
So my point is that word pretextual really makes sense here, because this doesn't make sense based on the excuses that you've put up. And, they also Formula One also faulted Andretti for attempting to use an existing engine manufacturer because it, quote, could be damaging the prestige of standing in Formula One.
That's crazy.
Right.
What? And, an HRT and Virgin Formula One and Caterham weren't?
Okay, but let's just say that that's the old Formula One. This is the new Formula One, where every franchise is worth $1 billion, and it's a whole new ball game. Still, Renault's running engines. You can't say this. You can't say
it's baloney.
And and maybe they were talking about the contract that Cadillac had with Renault that ran out. Well, it ran out because they wrote a year contract thinking it would be done, that they could sign some sort of deal by then. Andretti will get an engine supplier if they come in before 28 and Cadillac supplies their own.
Sure.
But
absolutely.
And let's not forget that the FIA did approve Cadillac and Andretti after a comprehensive and stringent process. They analyzed their sporting and technical ability. I mean, we all reacted just because we know how Andretti is and we know how Cadillac is. We said, this is crazy, but FIA did a deep dive and said, obviously, these guys are of all the teams that said that they want to enter Formula One, Andretti's the obvious one, especially when packaged with General Motors.
And just take it back to its roots here. Before we start getting into the nitty-gritty of it, the Concord Agreement clearly states that there are 10 teams in Formula One, and there is room for potentially 12. They put a tender out.
Yeah.
They invited people to do this. And then you turn them away?
Yeah.
4 groups, businesses, big ones, including one in Saudi Arabia and another one from Britain, High Tech. These are not fools. And David Dicker of Roden, and of course that's who Abby Pulling drives for. You know, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
And the letter goes on to address exactly what you just said, because it says, and I'm reading straight from the letter from the House Judiciary Committee. It says, the truth, as FIA President Ben Salim explained, is that the rejection of Andretti Cadillac is, quote, all about the money. The Concord agreement is set to expire at the end of 2025, and reports indicate that a new agreement will include a much higher entry price or a total ban on a new entry. And in addition, as one team owner explained his opposition to Andretti's entry, many of the uncompetitive teams are not financially stable. Weak teams want to be protected from competition to the detriment of all consumers and an additional team who compete for prize money and sponsorship. So, I mean, they're saying, you know, one of the words that was thrown about in this letter is cartel, right? And by if this came out, if the new Concord agreement came out with a total ban on new entry, I mean, that's what they're saying defines a cartel. So, yeah, here are the things that. I'll read the things that the committee said that they want. It says, as the committee examines this matter and considers potential legislation around the structure and competition of sports leagues, we request a staff-level briefing on the decision to deny Cadillac's application to join Formula One. So they want a briefing of some sort. And then it said, in addition, we ask that you provide the following information: all documents and communication referring to or relating to the process for evaluating the entry of a new team into Formula One. Number 2, all documents and communication referring to or relating to the entry of Andretti Global specifically into Formula One. All documents and communication relating to the January 31st decision to exclude Andretti. And all documents and communication between or among Formula One Group or Liberty Media and the 10 current Formula One teams referring to or relating to the entry of a new team. And all documents referring to the dilution fee and the Concord agreement. So, and they say, we want this by no later than 5 p.m. on May 21st. I mean, so what is that? 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Right. So that is, I cannot wait to see what these documents are. And you know, what I was saying earlier about how they brought Zuckerberg in, we've seen other people brought before Congress, right?
It really does change
if they don't provide these things, this is what they'll do.
Yeah, and it really does change the aspect of it, because this is not an in-house Formula One problem anymore. It's a bit like Horner's problem. Suddenly, it's now going to, you know, to a situation where it's going to become public. So what I'm getting at, this isn't just an infighting between, the teams going, oh, we're not getting enough money. This is suddenly now a major story of antitrust.
Yeah. All right, let's take our last quick break, and we'll be right back after these messages. All right, let's see what the YouTube folks are saying. Dip says, I'll never understand how they can believe F1 will bring more to Andretti than Andretti to F1 when Haas is probably most likely brings nothing to F1 and its fame. And I mean, let's be honest about Haas. They've brought a lot of negative. I mean, the Rich Energy debacle.
Bar Gunther's sort of
the Mazepin. Yeah. But yeah, Gunther. Yeah, that you have to say, you have to give Gunther and. You know, we have to give Gunther the credit for Haas. Haas wouldn't have happened without Gunther. It was his idea. But Haas themselves, you know, they really haven't. And I'm just reading the rest of Dip. So anyway, so Brian says, maybe I'm just optimistic, but I feel like this round has looked more positive for Andretti. The fact that he stayed until race day on Sunday as opposed to just cutting out after Friday. Yeah, we were there, and I saw Michael and Mario and their head of, I forgot his title, head of motorsport, and one of, who was the girl, the woman, that was an Andretti that was there also? Anyway, there was
Chadwick?
No. She was an actual Andretti.
Hi, this is Max Verstappen, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
All right, welcome back to your Sunday night with Speed City. We were talking about Andretti, and there was some comments on YouTube that I wanted to finish up here because these were good. The only thing here, Ali says, the only thing that would make Andretti uncompetitive would be the Renault engine. She's kind of smiling. Yeah, well, you can have your opinion on that. That's great. Dip says FOM also said they would reconsider an entry for Andretti in 2028, but for a 2020 entry, Andretti would have to go through the FIA's process again for a new team. Yes, and that's why. Everybody said, "Oh, it's not a hard no." They're saying 28. Well, it was a hard no, and
For
saying
26, yeah.
for 25, 26, come back. So, clearly, there's a lot more to this story.
It still remains a
Yes.
crazy story.
Yeah, but I do agree with Brian saying that it does feel more optimistic and not huge because. They've got to. I just want to see what their responses are to these requests from the House Judiciary Committee. What are they going to say, and what are they going to show us? Those are. It's kind of like basically it's like an official public information request. You can ask of your local government or whatever, like what happened in these meetings. That's what we're getting to see.
Well, and again, 2020 hindsight. It's you look in the rearview mirror. 5 years ago, not even that. Formula One were desperate to have 10 teams, and people were going out of money. People were being supported. People were being bankrolled by Bernie to stay alive.
Yep.
And now is suddenly the opportunity to get an OEM like GM could potentially service 3-4 teams as customers, like Mercedes do right now, and could be the next powerhouse in Formula One for the next 20 years. And by the way, Ford are in there as well. And if that's the case, they'll want to do the same. And then suddenly Ferrari and Mercedes look like minnows in comparison to what Ford and GM could go head to head with. No, if you do that, we'll do this. We want 3 customers.
Yeah. Speaking of Ford, one of the photos that I was digging through that our photographer took was with one of the guys from Ford talking to the Andretti team. I thought that was interesting. But so Brian said something, and I commented, said, maybe I'm just optimistic. This round has looked more positive. How about the timing of the 3.1 million people that watched Miami and this Andretti effort? And because it's like, okay, hello, the money. Let's face it, the GDP of the United States versus all the other countries that are involved in Formula One. It's like you can almost add all of them up. I've done it before. You can almost add all the rest of the countries involved, and they still don't add up. They want the money.
Can you imagine if this story was Guang Ying Andretti, i.e., if it was a Chinese investor bringing the money that Andretti's doing, building factories in Silverstone? Can you imagine the outcry of the prejudice towards a China? And let's face it, there's plenty of billionaires in China that could do this. But can you imagine the outcry if I'm just trying to give a parallel.
Yeah, I get it. Yes. I agree. It does. It's funny. I hadn't really thought about it. But it feels like what Skip Barber said.
Yeah.
In our interview with him. By the way, it's a great interview. Got it on YouTube. Jonathan sat with him.
Yeah, go and look at our YouTube. We got some really nice stuff out there at the moment.
Yeah, we really do. And especially you can go back too, including the one that the interview you sent 7, 8, 9 years ago
with Lando
Norris. Jonathan called me or texted me and said, "Hey, I got the next Lewis Hamilton."
I know.
And this was, where was it? At Toyota?
Yeah,
it's a
Toyota Racing Series. He was 15. Yeah.
So that was 2012 or 13, something like that. And said, "Hey, I got the next Lando Norris," and you're at least not too far off anyway. So anyway, so my point is that the timing of the huge numbers that the American audience is paying attention. And you can't tell me that Andretti would not be good for the sport, because anytime that we comment on Andretti on any social or on the show or whatever, people go crazy and go, and the first comment is, why are they not letting him in? Why are they not? And it's not just the United States. I look at all our analytics and the comments that come in overnight, and I'm going, those people are watching it in Europe in the next morning, and they're saying the same thing. I think this is a universal thing. This isn't it's going to be great for the United States, but it's a universal thing because of the name of Andretti.
I also, can we step back one? I talk about how it's growing in America. I just want to make a footnote on F1 Academy. Netflix are going to be doing their own series on F1 Academy.
Mm-hmm.
And Reese Witherspoon is going to direct it, and she produce it, and she has just produced the morning show with Jennifer Aniston.
Oh yeah, that's huge
Now,
on
now
HBO.
you're talking, and now you're talking big time.
Wow.
Reese Witherspoon is
Wow.
is big in Hollywood, no question about it, both as an actress and also obviously as a producer.
Just makes me smile thinking about the timing of Jamie Chadwick and
I know.
I mean all this. That's really cool.
Yeah, if you've missed the boat, women's motorsport is happening, folks. Get on board.
Yeah, and it's very early days still
Yeah.
though right now.
Yeah.
It's really
And not everybody's got it right. We know we got some of that at Miami. I know, but hey, we're fully behind it.
yeah. Yeah. A Michael Andretti / Roger Penske story that is exactly what I forgot about this when I put this in my stories is that Andretti was pleased to see Roger Penske's suspensions, but disappointed it took so long.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like it took, how long was it? A week? Something like that. But
Yeah, but you're right. He could have. I don't think he really knew. He wanted to get to the bottom of it
Yeah.
before he made any decisions, and he did exactly that.
and I don't think it was an inordinate amount of time. It was just,
Yeah.
it took a few days. But asked by NBC Sports if the suspension sent a reassuring message to the paddock, Andretti said on Friday, he said, "It's a better message. It could have been done earlier. It's sort of like you had to get outside pressure to get it done, but at least he did it." And that may be a little competitive dig from one, team owner to another, but I still think that, there's some credence to it. It could have been a little bit, but
Okay.
what else, Jonathan? We had a couple of stories that you put in there that I wanted. You put in one about Natalie Robin leaving the FIA.
Yeah, I noticed that because she's been there not that long, 18 months. But when you read and dig into that story, I guess what I was thinking about is this. I said again, the F1 Academy was such a success, and women in motorsport has got this huge positive wave now. And yet, when you look to the FIA and Bin Sulayman's, stuff that's gone on in the past, he's been accused of being misogynist and basically sexist over the time. 4 people, top executives, including the head of women in motorsport, have all left the FIA in 6 months, and Natalie Robin's the next one to go, and she too is senior. So, when the bottom of the, if you like, it's all very well to have these positive stories about women in motorsport, but they could also be ruined by a culture at the FIA, which I still think is not right yet.
Yeah. Let's see what else. I want to talk about Imola before how much time we got? We got about 3 minutes. So Imola up next. What do you think of when you think of Imola?
Well, I think of obviously Senna, and I think of that May 1st day in 1994. And I've been to the statue. It's just by Tamburello. I think of what a fantastic, not many people know this, but it's actually, it's in an ancient city called Imola. And the city itself goes back centuries. And in fact, the area that the Imola racetrack is built in was originally a gladiator stadium.
How perfect.
So, yeah, exactly.
There's been competitive sports there for centuries.
Literally. But it's a wonderful place. It literally is in the city. And there's also no movement because there's a river there, which is why they couldn't just move Tamburello back and why they turned it into a chicane. And that's another reason why, that was one of the faults put at the foot of Senna's crash, was that the runoff wasn't long enough, but there's a river right there. You can't do anything. So anyway, it's a great venue, great corners, great racetrack, tight. You need the DRS for sure, but it always throws up good racing. The only footnote that is an interest to me is Imola are in a fight now to keep the Grand Prix, and are saying that because of so many new Grand Prix, Vegas, Miami, etc., it's really hard. And the head of Imola said, hang on a minute, we put on a Grand Prix in the middle of COVID. So don't forget that.
Yeah.
They stepped up
Got a
when
little
nobody
loyalty.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, no, it's great historical place. And by the way, it's the nearest race to Maranello, to Ferrari.
And I'm just glad it's at a normal time. Things are back to normal. It's at 8 a.m. race here in Austin, so we'll
take it.
We'll be on our pre and post shows as usual. Go to our website, speedcitybroadcast.com, to find out how to listen to our pre and post on national radio. A couple of final comments on YouTube I wanted to get in. Andy P says, Andretti is the one story that unifies almost the entire F1 fan base. And
Yeah,
that's
true.
what I was saying. And E. Jurgens 100 says, thank you for all the interviews you've done for years with Chloe and other women in motorsport and for getting the F1 Academy out there.
Thank you.
Thank you, because
We appreciate that.
You can go back to our YouTube for 10 years.
Yeah.
And you'll see all
Thank
those.
you, E-Juggers.
Yes,
We like you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. And please go to our website and find out when, how, and where to watch and listen to all of our shows. And, of course, we'll be back next Sunday.
Happy trails.